Mind Over Masculinity podcast with your host, Sana. And today we are talking about something really, really thought provoking and important. Now, you know that this is the podcast where we rewrite the stories men have been told about strength, leadership, and vulnerability. Now, today I want you to ask yourself, can you be a high performing leader without compromising your health? Now, in a world that celebrates hustle and output, we often overlook the invisible toll that leadership takes, especially on men who are taught to handle it all, but in silence. And my guest today knows this terrain deeply. Listeners, meet Yosi Kossowsky. He is a seasoned executive coach with over 18 years of experience and over 30 years in the global leadership roles. From CTO to Senior Director of Talent Management, Yosi has walked the high pressure path, and he now helps others navigate it with intention, authenticity, and most importantly, resilience. We're diving into what it really means to balance leadership with well being and why mental health, especially for men, deserves a seat at the boardroom table. So, with that, Yossi, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
You sound really happy to be with you today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yossi, you have coached leaders all over the world. I mean, 18 years of experience. That is not a joke. So, when it comes to balancing leadership demands and personal well being, where do most people get it wrong? Especially for men.
You know, not sure that there's one place that people get it wrong. A lot of it is the pressure we put on ourselves and the way that we perceive the pressure in the workplace. The environment that most of us work in is they want more output, just like you said, they want more output, and more output.
Yeah.
And there is a strong sense that if I won't do the job, then somebody will replace me.
Yeah.
And so this idea that also no one's replaceable puts a lot of extra pressure that either I need to show up, I need to get it right, or I'm out. And that's a tremendous amount of pressure because most of us are working to pay the bills. And if we lose our job, then all of a sudden there's a whole host of other challenges that we have to face. Now, honestly, I won't say that this is a problem for men only. I think this is a problem for everybody or a challenge for everybody in the workspace. The the added pressure for men often comes from a mindset or a belief that we cannot show it. We cannot show the vulnerability, we cannot show the stress and the strain, and that we need to always put on that um, outward exterior that we've got it handled, that we can do it, that, no problem, I'll take it all on. And I don't really think anybody, any human is set up to shoulder all of that without having a support system, people to talk to, a way to debrief and decompress. So, long-winded answer, to me, that's like the different pieces that play a huge role in it.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. And yeah, this is not gender perspective issue. It's with everyone. But since we are on mind over masculinity, I think for men, that provider mindset, it can be such a double-edged sword. I mean, do you think you see that some men confuse burnout with commitment, because that's what they have been kind of taught, from childhood, that you need to be a provider. You need to make sure that you are successful, your family is thriving, and you are there irrespective of any kind of situation or emotional state you are in. And that can really sometimes lead to burnout in silence.
100%. And I think it's also that there's a mindset not to show not to show our emotions, not to show something that we would perceive or was taught as weakness. And many boys are taught not to cry, that only babies cry, and we we don't get a really good education about how to feel our feelings, how to express our feelings, how to decompress, how to do anything other than make sure we show up, make sure we look like we've got it all covered.
Yeah.
Um, and yes, for many of us, we are shouldering the responsibility of the primary breadwinners in the house, and that adds a lot of other pressure. And again, it's without knowing different, without being able to completely reframe everything that we've been brought up with, there's no easy way out of this.
True. That's true. Um, that's terrible, but then yes, there are solutions. And talking about solutions, in your coaching, you see, you integrate neuroscience, um, and that's where my question is that how do our brains respond to leadership stress? And how we can is it possible that we can rewire our brains or our patterns for resilience, or is it something inbred? It cannot be changed.
No, I definitely believe we can rewire for resilience, for a whole different output system than what we have today. And I do not think that in any way this is a matter of we're locked in and we cannot change. So the process of change, like any process of change, is a process. It's not a switch that I think anybody can just do. I've never seen it anyway, not myself, not anybody I've worked with, where we can hear something and then poof, we just make a change and we're all of a sudden all better. It's a growing of awareness that we are carrying these ideas and these beliefs and the impact on us. The neuroscience really helps inform when I'm explaining to people why they are experiencing the emotional, mental, physical strains that they are. The neuroscience gives me the information to be able to point to specific symptoms that often people are feeling or experiencing, and then to do exercises and experiments that show them that at some level, even deep breathing can change the way you feel in the moment. And there are, thankfully, in the world, many, many, many solutions, as you would say, but many techniques that we can utilize at different times of the day in our life, what's going on, to help us decompress. And ultimately, if we really want to take control of our lives, I bel I believe in my experience that it does take a bit of rewiring, in a sense, of recognizing what I'm holding on to, these ideas and these beliefs that I've picked up from childhood or young adulthood and have been carrying around, however, not really serving us to be at our best, operate at our highest efficiency, so that we can do a great output without the burnout.
Mm. No, that that definitely makes sense. And it's really practical because many leaders, they kind of maybe unintentionally resist these soft skills because they could see them as secondary to strategy. um and do you find these kind of patterns, when you begin with the coaching for the first time, let's say with a leader, Do you find them resisting this, or this is something they easily accept?
I would say it is not a one answer. It's a wide range depending on where somebody is, how stressed they are, how informed they are. There's podcasts like yours and other information that has already really clued a lot of people in to the idea that there are other ways, there are ways to decompress, there are ways to help ourselves. And some people are really have not heard anything about yoga, mindfulness, deep breathing, or things of that nature. And that's rare, honestly, today. Most of them at least have heard of it. The idea of resistance, there is resistance in different levels. Most of it is, in my experience of the people that I've worked with, more a matter of I don't know what to do or how to do it rather than I don't believe that it's possible.
Mm. Yeah, it can be really nuanced. And Yossi, in your experience, not sure whether this question is right or wrong, but what role does emotional literacy play in transforming toxic leadership patterns? Especially um, not being obviously, outrightly, uh, kind of gender specific, but especially in male dominated industries. Because I often hear that, there are men who want to express more, but they feel like they have never had that safe way to start.
So I feel that that's more than emotional literacy. That's emotional or a desire to do something about the situation, the experience that they're having.
Mhm.
So there again is this really range. There are people that are bullies and they get a lot of energy from being a bully. It's not that they lack emotional literacy or intelligence. This is
Mhm.
an experience that they get high off of, that they get an emotional and energetic reward off of, is beating the other person, coming out on top, take no survivors or whatever that is. And so they could actually be tremendously emotionally intelligent and aware and still intentionally show up that way. Then there is the people that who really want to be showing up differently, who want to be doing better, who want to treat others better. Um, and they either have had some learnings about it and not been able to really find a way to form the habits and bring it into their day to day. And then there's those who really want it and haven't really learned in any way what to do. And so then for those people, it is a matter of awareness, learning, and practice. So really, it's a broad range. Um, I do struggle personally with people that are intentionally happy or willing to hurt others for their own gain. Not my personal value system. And yet again, it's for me, there is some people where it's emotional literacy, emotional awareness tools, and some people where it's not that at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. See, talking about your experience, I mean, 30 years in high level leadership roles, I mean, CTO, Senior Director of Talent Management, and then you transitioned into executive coaching. Um, was there any specific moment or reason that you went from such, lucrative, high levels of leadership positions into executive coaching? I mean, was there a transition or transformation in your thought process? Or, I mean, how has What was the journey behind this transformation?
It was a multi-step process, actually. So it first started off as an engineer wanting to learn more about how to connect better with people, how to be a better leader or manager of people, and recognizing that everything I had read wasn't something so easily to translate into behaviors. And as an engineer, that's was not my experience. I could learn something and then I could go and apply it in an engineering level. And certainly there would be experimentation, getting it wrong. However, the idea of being a good listener, having patience, um, really being present with other people and their experiences, hearing ideas or input from another person's perspective and not overriding it with mine and lots of other things that I was not able to translate from what I read in a book into a behavior change. And so that initiated a whole set of learning in areas of like emotional wellness therapy and neuroscience therapy that was very transformational. So that happened. And then later, about 5 years later, I it was suggested to me that a good thing to do if I want to stay in the corporate world and use these skills was to get a coaching certification. And that led me to get my first coaching certification. Still didn't change my job until the company I was in got acquired by a much larger company. And the acquisition was such that from a cultural perspective in the company that I was in, the acquired company, it was a really rough experience for us. And as I was watching a company that had high morale, really great culture, kind of like fall on the floor, that I decided to offer coaching to a whole bunch of executive leaders, and that was the beginning of the change of my career. Um, the reason that I decided to ultimately do this as a full-time role really is 2 things. A, I got tremendous feedback that I'm really good at it, and second, I guess it's 3 reasons. Second, I really tremendously find it rewarding and a way of making the world a better place. And thirdly, so often, as we've already been talking about on the whole show, is there is something interesting about the workplace that has us often wearing a different persona than we would when we're out of the workplace. We might show up differently, act differently, uh, express ourselves differently, and very often what I found was that the ways that we are doing that are not allowing us to be our healthiest selves. And therefore, by coaching within the corporate world and helping people get really in touch with themselves, understand themselves better, free themselves from limiting beliefs, derailers, and blocks, allowed them or and allows them to be more productive, um, healthier, more focused, more purposeful. For some people, where the word happiness um, kind of plays a role, happy and ultimately feeling much better. And so I don't know if I answered your question completely, but that was kind of the journey.
That's very much some of the most valid reasons. And, two good things which I absolutely admire from your reasons. I mean, how satisfactory and how fulfilling you felt by helping um, people who are at the leadership roles, because they shape um minds, they influence, they affect the lives of the people who are part of that organization. And as an individual, we spent almost our entire day, or almost,
Yeah,
and so much of
exactly.
lifetime in our workplaces. So if our workplaces aren't right, then it's going to be such a detrimental effect on our entire life, on our health, whether it's emotional, mental, physical, or spiritual. So, yeah, I know it can be so fulfilling. And secondly, yes, in my corporate years of experience also, I have gone through this. I've seen, many seniors going through it, that they are kind of having a different persona when working, but outside they're completely opposite of what they look like.
Right.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
that is
It's crazy.
great. And you see, so for men, how do you define resilience? I mean, are there any non negotiables that you recommend for leaders, especially men who want to protect their health, holistically while staying effective? So these are two questions, but then, yeah, I would love to know your opinion on this.
Any non-negotiable, I don't know if there's any non-negotiables in a sense that would be a universal way to go. For me, the recommendation is if you are feeling stressed, if you are feeling burnt out, if you are feeling that the way you have to live your life in the office environment is eating away at you, and you don't feel good at the end of the day, you don't look forward to the next day, is go do something about it. You don't you don't just have to live that life. There is, as you say, there are tools, there are techniques, there are ways to help yourself to still be so productive and effective and yet feel and react in a much healthier, um, aligned way to your principles, to your values, to the life you want to lead in your whole life. So that's what I'd say is that the non-negotiable would be if you get up tomorrow and you still are dreading your life and you're dreading your day and you're dreading going to work and you're dreading the compromises that you feel you have to make, on a human level, on an emotional level, then reach out to somebody who can help you.
Hmm. That's really great. And you'll see if our listeners they would like to connect with you, what would be the best place?
The best place currently is LinkedIn. I'm Eventually I will get my website built. It's a work in progress, but has not been my greatest priority this year. So LinkedIn is the place right now.
Great. I'll make sure to have your LinkedIn profile mentioned in the show notes for our listeners to connect. And Yossi, thank you for this honest, nuanced, something I believe many of our listeners, especially men in leadership, they need to hear. And thank you so, so much. This was
Yeah,
really
you're
great.
so welcome. Thank you for having me on the show. And again, to your men listeners and even your women listeners who want to help their men, there are ways. There are absolutely ways to work to be a high performer and have a healthier life. So thank you for having this show and helping men.
Thank you. Thank you, Yossi. And to everyone tuning in, especially to all the men out there and the women who want to help their men, as yours is perfectly said, resilience isn't just about pushing through, it is about checking in with yourself. It's about redefining what strength really means. And it's about allowing spaces for softness, curiosity, and yes, even failure without shame. So, if you're a leader listening right now, I leave you with this. You can't lead others well if you abandon yourself in the process. And thank you to everyone for joining us on Mind Over Masculinity. Until next time, keep leading, keep feeling, and keep evolving. Thank you.